Hello and welcome. I'm
Hi.
Jennifer Laszlo Mizrahi from the Mizrahi Family Charitable Fund. And on behalf of us, and especially the Jerusalem Press Club, I want to thank everyone who has joined us today for this incredibly important conversation about people with disabilities in Israel. I want to acknowledge from the get-go that people with disabilities in Gaza are also experiencing severe hardship, that there are many innocent people who are really suffering there as well. And our hearts obviously go out to those who are innocent in Gaza who are suffering from what is happening. But this session is going to really focus on what is happening in Israel today for the population of people with disabilities. We have four amazing speakers that are going to each sort of give one sort of opening of what's going on from their different perspectives. And then we're going to turn it over to conversation so that people who have joined us can ask questions. I see some of the top disability leaders from the Jewish community around the world have joined us. And also I see Isabel from Hodges, who is with us. She is one of the top global disability issues for people who are suffering during times of crisis. So we have some terrific people on this Zoom. This Zoom is being recorded, so I want to let you know that, and you can write questions into the text. So we're going to get started. But before we start, let me just tell you the four perspectives that we're going to hear from. First, we're going to hear from Ayala Davidowitz from JDC Israel Unlimited. They are the largest Jewish humanitarian organization in the world. They do very large-scale human services programs, working frequently with the government and across a lot of different nonprofit organizations. And they also have a special focus for vulnerable populations that includes people with disabilities. The second person we'll go to is Rachel, who will give us the perspective of a self-advocate, and we're looking forward to hearing from her. And then we will hear from Israel Elwin, because Sharon Ehrenwald, her team does an extraordinary job of trying to meet the needs of thousands of people with disabilities who live in Israel. And this includes Jews, Arabs, Druze, Bedouins, and others. So we look forward to hearing about the direct service component. And we will focus at the end with Dr. Tali Marcus from Bizchut. Bizchut is really the advocacy arm or an advocacy arm of the disability movement in Israel, helping represent dozens of different disability nonprofits as they work with the government towards better laws, better process, etc. So we're going to start with Ayala. Can you tell us a little bit about the disability movement in Israel, how many people with disabilities live there, and what has been going on both on October 7th and since then?
Sure. Thanks, Jennifer. And I'm happy to be here today. I wish it was under different circumstances. And I appreciate all of you being here to learn more about this really important issue. In Israel, there are more than 9 million people that live in Israel. Of them, about 17% of people have a disability. About 50% of them have more than one disability. And we see that these numbers are relatively consistent throughout the world. So Israel is not very unique in that way. The numbers are quite similar if you look sort of per capita. If you look at the number of people that have been probably the most affected by the current situation, there are about 55,000 people. If you look at the north and in the south, people with disabilities that are living in the high conflict areas with a disability. So I want to tell you a little bit about sort of what they're going through, the needs that we see rising in the field, the stories that we keep hearing over and over again, and also a little bit about what JDC is doing about it. So just to kind of set the stage, for those of you who are living in Israel, you know this very well probably, but when a siren goes off, when the alert goes off that there are rockets coming to your area, depending on where you are, you have between 10 seconds and a minute and a half to get into a safe space, into either a bomb shelter or a safe room in your home or wherever you are. If you think about people with disabilities, when that siren goes off, what happens if you have a mobility issue? What happens if you can't get to a safe space within 10 seconds to a minute and a half? What happens if you're deaf, you don't even hear the siren? What happens if you're blind and with all of the chaos around you, you have trouble getting into that safe place? Think about people with cognitive disabilities that don't necessarily know exactly what's going on around them, people with autism that are overwhelmed. So there's a lot of stress among the, like, within just the concept of getting to a safe place. We hear from people with disabilities that they don't leave their house because they don't know if they're going to be where the siren's going to catch them, if they're going to be able to get to a safe space. What happens if they're on the street? It's just not safe. Another issue that we're looking into and we see rising again and again is the issue of the people who are displaced and relocated, evacuated from their homes, both in the south and in the north, and they're brought to new areas where they don't have the same accessibility and access that they did at home. So think about what that means. It means that maybe there are increased needs, because if the person had sort of their home made accessible to them, suddenly they're in a new place. They're brought to hotels where they don't have, where, you know, they might be an accessible room, but they won't have somebody that, you know, the bed might be at the wrong height. They won't be able to move from their wheelchair into their bed, or the shower won't be accessible to them. And then suddenly they're dependent on others where they weren't dependent on them before. Things like regular access to their medical needs, to their doctors, to therapies, things like that, that suddenly they're in a new area. They have no idea who to talk to, where they can get these treatments. Then there's the issue of caregivers. Now, when we're talking about people with caregivers, usually we're looking at family members. We're not talking about foreign workers that we often see working with the elderly. We see family caregivers. And so what happens when you have a family member that's also coping with the trauma of what happened and the crisis that we're all currently in? Are they able to provide the same level of care to their loved one with a disability? What happens, you know, we've heard stories of people with disabilities that have lost one or two parents to the Hamas, who were murdered, and suddenly, you know, they don't have their caregivers anymore. And so what do you do in that situation? I think in the best of times, the voice of people with disabilities is often lost because they can't communicate very well sometimes. Sometimes they don't feel like they have the voice to talk about what their needs are. And particularly now, I would say when the focus is, at least for the last number of weeks, has been so pinpointed at basic needs, like finding places to live, like finding clothes, like food, things like that, that the people with disabilities are often, the issues that are raised from people with disabilities are often put to the side. If you're dealing with trying to sort of recreate an education system for the kids that were displaced all over the country, how much of an effort are you going to be putting into the larger population of kids that don't have disabilities, and what are you going to do with special needs? And we see that oftentimes the needs of people with disabilities comes in second, third, fourth, or fifth place. And there's the other big issue that comes out of this is what then happens to everything that we've been working on in terms of creating independence and autonomy and a sense of strength and empowerment for people with disabilities. When we're dealing just with the very basic needs, where does all of that work that all of us here have been working for so long on really bringing to the forefront? What happens with those issues? Another thing that we see and we all know is that the issue of disabilities is a very diverse space. There's people who are dealing with physical disabilities, with psychiatric disabilities, people who are dealing with intellectual developmental disabilities, sensory disabilities, people who are blind, hard of hearing. So the needs and the accommodations that need to be made for people in the new areas where they're living, the people who are displaced, is enormous. And there are a lot of different needs out there, and it's very hard to sort of create a one stop solution for all of these different needs that are coming up. Another thing is, there's no routine, there's no school. Again, if we talk about special education, that's really been hit hard. Another population that's feeling this even more is Arabs with disabilities. And I understand we're going to be talking about that a little later today. But if you think about the Bedouins, they often don't even have sirens going off in there where they're living. They don't have safe spaces to go to. What happens if you have somebody who is on a respirator and suddenly there's no electricity? And there's really horrible stories that we hear coming up from the field. And another issue that we run into is just the issue of how hard it is to locate the people with disabilities, to find out where they are. There's a lot of movement going on. Some people have been helped by the government to move into these hotels, but some people have chosen to go to family members or to friends. It's very hard to pinpoint where people are so that they can get the services that they need. And it's become a serious issue, and we're looking at how we can provide large scale and organized solutions. We're looking at a little bit just for a second about how JDC responded to this issue. So I just want to say that the fact that we have such dedicated partners, both in the government and the other NGOs that we work with, we were able to pivot quite quickly during this time on October 7th. And we've been really mapping the field and seeing what needs have come up and where we have added value. And the three major issues that we're looking at is first of all, the urgent needs that have come up. And I'll give you a couple of examples. Number two is the issue of mental health, because when we're talking about disabilities, we are also talking about psychiatric disabilities and mental health challenges. And the third thing that we're looking at is the issue of rehabilitation, because I think we all know that this is not going to be just a couple of weeks or a couple of months. We're going to really have to look at long-term care for people that have been affected by October 7th and the aftermath. So in terms of the urgent needs that we're talking about, JDC is working with community caseworkers in over 47 different communities. Again, there's about 48,000 people with disabilities in the south, about 5,000 in the north if we're looking at the conflict areas. And we're really trying to get in touch with as many of those people as we can to understand what their needs are and to be able to provide them with the services and support that they need. Another thing that we're working on is getting medical and accessibility equipment to people with disabilities. So that we're doing together with Direct Relief, which is a US-based humanitarian organization. And they've been providing us with over $100,000 worth of medical equipment, things like hospital beds, cranes, defibrillators, EKG and blood pressure machines, wash chairs, things like that. And we're going to be getting more equipment as time goes on as well.
Thank you so much. I might cut you a little short and have us come back to some of those things in the Q&A. This is so helpful. Thank you so much. And Rachel, if we can get from you a perspective of what was it like for you on October 7th, and how have the services or supports in your life changed because of what's going on in Israel these last 25 days? If you can unmute yourself first, I apologize.
During October 7th, on Simchat Torah, which is a holiday kind of ending the high holidays, I remember that I was staying at a friend in Beit Shemesh with my boyfriend, and we decided to spend the the last day of the Hagim together. And I remember for dinner, just peacefully on the 6th of October, going to shul, having dinner and being social, ending the holidays, and just hearing in the morning that Hamas has come to Israel. And then I just remember I was in the Beit Knesset and heard the sirens go off. So we went under the stairs, and then they decided to have it in the yeshiva, and less people were going to shul because of the war. And then the neighbor said that my boyfriend and I, because we stayed at separate places, but neighbors said that we could have lunch at their place instead of at the friend who we were originally going to, if we didn't feel comfortable walking out there because of the war. But I had no idea that this time was worse than any other time before. And then I remember I did still walk outside, and then at least Beit Shemesh was not an area that Hamas invaded. But I just remember then later going in Motzi Shabbat, I found out that Hamas had broken in to Israel in the first time in history. And this just sounded very scary to hear that. And then I was wondering if I was going to make it home. And then the host said that I should stay the night, Motzei, like Hag and Motzei Shabbat, not return home. And then I even asked some friends in Beersheba, they said, we don't know how safe the roads are. And then I missed work for 2 days. Some people missed work for much longer. And rather than heading out early in the morning, I ended up just checking. And the road goes closer to Gaza on the way to Beersheba, where I live, but it doesn't go on the road towards Sderot and the kibbutzim that are super close, and those roads were still dangerous. And then I just texted my host, told some friends that I made it home safely to Beersheba in the middle of the afternoon, and just decided I always know that I can see for some people, if they've never heard a siren, it can be overwhelming to them. But then I just said, go into my bomb shelter, go into the stairs. If you're out on the road, if you're in a vehicle, you get out of a vehicle. On the bus driver will send you off. But when you're in a car, just park it wherever you are, get down on the road, cover your hands over your head. That's what you do when you're out there, so that to have them be the most protected. Because when you're outside, there's no full protection, but you won't be in danger if you don't get hit directly. But if you're inside and you're not in a protected place, if it hits you in the building, it can be more dangerous, knowing that. But in any way, I am still thankful to be in Israel, and I am still glad that I made Aliyah, and I'm blessed that I'm someone who was able to get back home and not living too far, too close, even though I live fairly close to the border. But other people are living close enough that they don't know when they're getting home. I just couldn't imagine not being able to provide some comfort items, because home can be a comfort place to a lot of people, and not knowing when you're getting home can be discomforting to many people. But I'm able to drive to work safely and do that and live a regular routine. And I feel like my experience in the war has made me a stronger person. And I know there are challenges to face, but I'm still blessed to be here.
Thank you so much, Rachel. That was really very informative and I appreciate it. I'm going to turn it now to Sharon from Israel Elwyn because they are delivering a lot of services. And I see that Jody is asking also about mental health and rehabilitation, both from JDC, but also I know you're involved in that. Can you tell us, Sharon, about what you all are doing and experiencing and how, first of all, how have things changed? What are you able to do? Where are some of the gaps?
Hi, everyone. Thank you for the opportunity to speak today. First of all, for those who are not familiar with Israel Elwyn, we serve individuals with disabilities nationwide. Most of the people that we support are referred by the Ministry of Welfare. So there's a variety of disabilities that we support, intellectual disabilities, people with autism, physical disabilities, and sensory. And as of October 7th, many of our programs were closed for a few days, more than a week. But our support living program continued to operate as usual. We support about 260 residents living in the community, mainly in Jerusalem and Herzliya. So first of all, we were taking care of those who were 7. As of our other branches nationwide, I think on the second week already, we opened most of our facility-based programs according to the Home Command guidelines and Home Front Command. And those who were at home were really looking forward, as of the end of the second week or the third week, going through, to go back to their programs and maintain their schedule. It was very, very important for them. Many of them were concerned about getting to the programs, but we were in contact every day and still are in contact every day with all the people that we serve all around the country. You were asking about the Arab Society as well. I can tell you that our mission of supporting people with disabilities from the Jewish community, from the Arab community, including Druze, Bedouins, everyone from all around the country. So this is part of our mission, and that is part of our how we work. About, I think, 1,700 people around Israel that we support are from the Arab community. Most of them are in northern Israel or East Jerusalem. We can say that some of the services that the Jewish community were concerned about going to work, and those from the Arab community as well. We were in contact with all of the employers to make sure that all of them can come back safe to their workplace. And if there wasn't a safe area in their workplace, some of them stayed home. Some of our programs went on remote. There were some early intervention programs, children from the age of 6 months until 3 years old, that had to stay home for a while. Some of them are still at home. So our professional staff was operating remote and having all of the guidance that the parents could get as much as they were available. So it is very hard to maintain your daily schedule with other family members, and especially when there's a child with a disability staying at home and out of their routine. We're in ongoing contact with the Ministry of Welfare to both share some of our experience and also making sure we're getting all the guidelines that they're sending out and fulfilling them with the IDF's guidelines as well. So we work closely with the local authorities who are very, very involved, and also we're very, very happy that many of our facility-based programs were open. I have to share that one of our buildings in Ashkelon was hit We hope to, when the time is right, to make sure that the building goes back to the situation it was before. And thank God it was closed during that time, and none of our service recipients were there when it was hit. We did lose one of our service recipients from the Future Directions program, Keshet, and she and her family from Nachal Oz were murdered at their home. She was attending our program in Ashkelon. So it's also dealing with support to our staff members, other service recipients who lost their friends, who are worried about their friends. So we conduct also support sessions for resilience for our team and for our service recipients as well. And a special team of our assistant CEOs and executive staff and program managers are constantly monitoring the updated regulations, and we're in contact with all the staff members and service recipients to check what the needs are and fulfilling their needs as we go. Basically, we live from day to day, and some regulations change on a daily basis. So it's our goal to try to reach out to everyone who is in need, and sometimes it also includes service recipients and also people with disabilities who were evacuated to areas where we have some of our programs operating, and we do as much as we can to support those people as well.
Thank you. Well, that's quite a lot. And I know we're going to do Q&A. So thank you very much. I'm going to turn it to Dr. Tali Marcos, but I'd like to just recap a couple of the things that I have just heard. So first of all, we heard from JDC that there's approximately 9 million people who live in Israel in total, approximately 9 million. Just to remind folks, 21% of them are from the Arab community. Sharon, we heard from that over 1,700 Arabs with disabilities are served just by her program alone, and that all of the programs are serving diverse populations, number one. We did hear that there are 55,000 people with disabilities who are in the frontline communities, right either in next to Gaza or up north. These are communities where people have had to be relocated because they're so close to the border and to the rocket fire that there's not enough time to get into shelter. So there's 55,000 people with disabilities that have had to be relocated very quickly, and in many cases into places where completely unfamiliar and may not have the same accessibility. We also know that Israel has called up 400,000 people from reserve duty, which means that a lot of the staff or the family members who would have supported individuals with disabilities are not able to stay at home and support those individuals with disabilities. So that's a very big change. And also we know that all of Israel has been under rocket fire. And so it's not just the border communities that are impacted. The mental health impact of having to consistently have to run into bomb shelters or safe rooms has a very significant mental health impact on a very, very large number of people, not just those with disabilities and with existing mental health conditions, but pretty much everyone in Israel currently has a mental health condition because of the trauma of the event. So I'm now going to turn it to Tali, who has such an easy job at Bizchut of trying to advocate with the government for all of these issues at a time that's going to be difficult because there is a very difficult government situation. The security cabinet is very small and making decisions only around very specific security issues. And a lot of the money that might have gone to social services may have to be diverted to the war effort. And also the Israeli economy is predicted to constrict because so many people have been called into the war effort. So given the reduced budget that will be available and the increasing needs, how does Bizchut look at, prioritize, and think about these issues? And there are questions from our audience about how perhaps people from overseas in addition to writing checks, could be helpful to you at this moment. We'd love to hear from you what your priorities are and how you're going to go through this.
Okay, thank you very much for inviting us for this talk. I'm here with me here are our chairman Yoav Kraim and also our policy advocacy director Dr. Edith Saragusti. And I will start by saying that we woke up on the morning of October 7th, and in the beginning we thought it's just another cycle of missile attack. And as time passed by, we realized it's, of course, much more horrific. And we now know that the war and the emergency situation in Israel is here to stay for a while, and it influencing the whole society and everybody living in Israel, and of course having a more serious impact on people with disability. So the first thing we did, because of the horrific incidents, there were among the people murdered by the Hamas, and the hostages were people with disabilities. We wrote together with the Clinical Legal Education Center at the Hebrew University of Jerusalem and the other organization. We drafted and sent 2 letters, one to the Red Cross and the other to the UN Special Rapporteur on the rights of people with disability, for the immediate release of all hostages, but with the special spot on people with disability for the care until their release. And if people ask what they could do to help, and maybe they can help us circulate and exert international pressure using those letters to release all Israeli hostages. So that in that manner. And now I want to talk a little bit about the difficulties and challenges facing the Israeli society now, the Israeli society and the people with disabilities, and the impact that we see and the concerns we have about the future. I mean, not only now, but what's going to happen next when the war hopefully will end. So many people in Israel have been evacuated for their homes. Some lost their homes entirely in the Hamas attack. Some have been evacuated by a government decision, and some have decided to leave their home as a precaution because of the constant barrage of missiles on their city. And the states of Israel actually has never dealt with challenges of such a large scale pertaining to the civilian population. And of course, people with disabilities are at greater risk at emergencies. So some people with disabilities do not have safe homes or shelters in their home, safe rooms or shelters in their home. Some do have shelters in their home, but of course they don't have enough time to get there, and some it's very difficult to evacuate them because they need to find suitable places that are accessible and suitable for their need. The legislation in Israel does state that during emergency, people with disabilities and the elderly should be first to evacuate, and that they should be evacuated to an accessible place and suitable for the needs. But there were many problems with the situation, and I would like to specify what are the problems in this regard and what should be done. So first of all, they should the prioritizing of the evacuation of people with disability, it didn't occur. It's very hard to find to make sure that they have accessible places. So first you need to prioritize the evacuation of people with disability. Second of all, you may need to make sure that they are placed in homes or other places suitable for the specific needs. And it is not easy to find enough places that are accessible for people with disabilities. And it's of course, it's not very easy to do that, in an emergency, that you need to do it right away. Once the person is settled in a new place, and it's actually in a new municipality, and then there arises the question, how does a person get all the services he or she needs? For example, education, if it's kids, prescribed medicine, medical help, all those things that usually a person has in the community, he needs to get now somewhere else. And how does the local government know who the person with disability is? Because if the local government needs to prioritize and first go to the people with disabilities, then how does it need? So some people are registered in the local government, but not all of them. Some people do not want to register because they don't want to be to let people know that they have disabilities, because they are afraid of discrimination, of the stigma it comes with. Some are not registered for other reasons, because they are not suitable for this registry. So there are lists in the local government that should be helpful in emergency time, but they are not satisfactory now. And also there needs to be a gentle balance between the need to have people on the list, have people with disability on the list for emergency time, so you can reach them and help them. Then, and on the other side, their privacy. I mean, how do you balance those two things? How do you do that? Some people with disabilities decided not to leave their home despite the war, despite the government decision to evacuate certain cities. They feel it's their place, it's the place they know. They don't feel that somewhere else it will be more comfortable for them. And then somebody needs to be in touch with them and to check on them every now and then, every few days. Maybe they need, if they cannot leave the house because of the situation, they need maybe help with getting groceries, getting their medicine. What happens in places, as you said before, all Israel, most of the places in Israel are being under attack. So a lot of places are not under evacuation, but still people are afraid to go out because they're going to be an alarm setting off. They don't have time to go to get groceries. How do we help those people? There needs to be a plan for that as well. And people are now evacuated to places that tomorrow might be, for now maybe they are safe, but tomorrow is something else. For example, in Ayala, the southern city in Israel, a lot of people were evacuated there, and now there are missiles coming for Yemen to that area as well. So maybe the strategy should be different. Maybe there should be more help at home than evacuating people somewhere else. So there is a concept also that developed by the Joint. I don't know the exact terminology in English. It's called, maybe Ayala could say, a community supporter. And they have a pilot program. A community supporter is meant to work with the social services department in a certain municipality. And that's like should be a one-stop person that will help in regards to education, health services, checking on the people with disability. They should have the list of the people with disabilities, and they should access them and check on them once in a while. It's a concept, as I said, developed by the Joint, but it's only a pilot now, and we think that it should be in every municipality and everywhere. And regarding the future, we have two main concerns. One, of course, the mental health treatment issue. First of all, there are very long waiting periods to receive every kind of mental treatment in Israel, psychotherapy treatment. This is already a long and ongoing problem. It's not from now, and it got even worse after the COVID. So now we expect it to be even worse than that. So there's need to be a change in that. The government should recruit more professionals. It should amend the services, the whole system. I can say that what we did even before war started, because of the situation, especially regarding long waiting periods for treatments for children. So we had been advocating to bring the Ministry of Health to regulate Kupot Cholim are the health giving the health services in Israel, to regulate them, to give the treatment in reasonable time. And we have a petition in the High Court of Justice regarding the waiting time periods. and we hope we can make a change by that. And we are in touch with all the time with the Ministry of Health. The other concern we have is that processes that already started to move on, like the deinstitutionalization, moving people, closing down institution, and having people move to the community, to live in the community, because the Bizchut believes that people with disabilities, all kinds of disabilities, should be part of the community. So we are afraid that those kind of processes will end or even go backwards because of the war. We know that the social services are moving now people from the community to institutions because it's like safer when they need to evacuate them. It's supposed to be a temporary solution, only for wartime, but still, you know, what's temporary, we don't know if it will stay that way or not. Yes, that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. So let me ask a couple follow-up questions before we turn it over, because there were two things that I didn't get from either you or one of the other speakers. Number one is, when somebody is evacuated, they live in a community that the terrorists were in, or was burned down, or right under the rockets. They evacuated. Who pays for them to stay in the hotel? Who pays for the transition? Is that the government, or is that a nonprofit? Number one, who pays for it? Number two, when we had tragedies in America, like when there was massive flooding, you know, in Houston, and they had so much mental health issues, other communities that spoke English could help with telehealth, or, you know, but I think, if I'm not mistaken, you have a limited supply of talent for mental health, and a lot of the talent might have been pulled out to go serve in the IDF. If somebody is a psychiatrist, for example, psychologist, social worker, do they get called out to the IDF, or can that be considered an essential service for them to stay giving mental health support? So what is the HR situation around your mental health professionals? Does anyone know the answers to either of those questions?
Maybe I can answer.
Great. Oh, hi.
Hi.
This is Efrat Stern from Israel Unlimited, another fantastic disability group in Israel.
Hi, thank you, and good evening, everyone. As much as I know, the government of Israel pays for moving from home to people that live from 0 to 4 or 0 to 7 kilometers. It depends on the decision of the government. It doesn't matter if people are with disabilities or without disabilities. In the first days, it was 0 to 4 kilometers. Then they offered also from 0 to 7. And we have several criteria that people, also like in Ashkelon or in other places that are more than 7 kilometers, can refer to and have the support. But a lot of people with disabilities are not in these kilometers, and they have to pay for themselves to live somewhere else, like other people in the country. So it's a big issue here, as Tali mentioned, and as Ayala mentioned, and we're dealing with a lot of help that we need to give people with disabilities, not only to find accessible places, but also when places say that they're accessible, it doesn't mean that a person with disability comes to this place, comes to this apartment or this hotel, that it actually fits the needs. So we are working on this too with a lot of NGOs in the field. So this is the first answer. As to the mental health issue, a lot of people, not just psychiatrists and social workers, yes, they were recruited again to the army. We have a lot of other people that are volunteers in the hotels and in other places, but we still have a lack of people, of therapists that can help. I have to say that I think that in the situation of Israel, even if we had twice therapists than we have now, it will not be enough. Everyone in Israel, if people were in the first line to the trauma, or because of the social nets or Israel is a small country. Everyone knows someone that was in the south. Everyone knows someone that was kidnapped. Everyone knows someone that was murdered. So we're all, the needs of the mental health issue are very, very big. We know it before this war and after the corona, and we know it now. We need a lot of interventions that are not just one-on-one. We need to use a lot of interventions that are peer-to-peer, that are technologies interventions, that are group interventions, social interventions. We need to use all of our communities and whatever we have so we can deal with this big issue of trauma. JDC is leading one of this big large-scale initiatives in this area, and not alone, with the ministries, with other NGOs in the field. But it's not just about therapists and if there are therapists or no. It's a really bigger question than this.
Thank you. And Israel Unlimited is connected to the JDC, and I see that Ayala has put some answers also in the chat in terms of their numbers of caseworkers and the shortages of, people to deal with this. And this is really going to be a very, very big challenge. Are there other questions that people would like to hear addressed from this group of people?
If I could answer one of the questions that I saw in the chat box, I saw someone asking about what people in the US or Canada can do for organizations and people with disabilities in Israel. I can only share from our experience and say that on a daily basis, we have a lot of partners from overseas. We actually were supposed to host a mission of JARC Florida today for a week. It was canceled due to the war, of course, but we're still in contact. They're all the time ask us what they can do for us, and we're planning a meeting, a remote Zoom for our residents and their residents. I think a lot of acts of solidarity are very, very important for us here in Israel, and it doesn't mean necessarily money. It means checking in, asking how the service recipients are dealing with the situation, having staff meeting other staff members and supporting each other, and asking what is this current situation and how we can, support each other. And also we know that a lot of Jewish communities around the world are dealing with a lot of concern. So I think the solidarity here and being together is very, very important. And asking about therapists and hearing Efrat, we can share that we got a few professionals from overseas offering to volunteer Hebrew speakers to support groups online. It's been a great resource for us and very, very helpful. So that's something that we wanted to share from our perspective.
Thank you so much. It makes me ask this question. I know that there's an initiative to try and use AI chatbots to help with therapy or companionship or just checking in. Is Israel looking holistically at using AI at all to help check in on people? Do you have sort of a triage system that you're making where AI can chat with somebody and ask how they're doing and then flag if there needs to be human intervention to follow up? Efrat looks like she's nodding her head. What do you know about this?
So actually, the government of Israel started to use technologies and other solutions, not just in the field that we're working now. Israel Unlimited, and yes, we are connected to JDC. We're a part of JDC Israel. In our large-scale initiative in the subject of mental health, or actually we want to call it resilience, and it's not just mental health issues. So we are looking at technology solutions too. Some of them are AI. I have to say that a lot of the solutions are still not very, most of them are still in English. Most of them are not used in Hebrew, and we will need a time. There are now some of them really, maybe not a lot in Hebrew, but we need to train them to be very, very specific and very and good enough in Hebrew. I have to say that in a research that was done in the UK, they found out that from 600 AI solutions or technology solutions for mental health issues, only 200 was quality enough to give a very good solution. So we have to look at it, but we have to be also very, very, we need to look at very, very good, so we can make sure that the solutions, that the results of using this technology are good and not
Excellent,
doing
excellent.
harm.
I'd like to hear more from Rachel. Rachel Paramata, you are a self-advocate. Can you tell us a little bit more about what you would like to see going forward to help support people with disabilities in Israel? Or do you want to tell us more about your experience?
So to move forward, one thing I think from people abroad is really there aren't that many people from outside of Israel that know Hebrew. Out of these 6 years, I learned Hebrew when I moved to Israel. I did not learn it prior to moving. And then on the other hand, yes, some people might be willing to do it in English, French, Spanish, or Russian, but there are other Israelis who I know even at work that will not communicate in any other language besides Hebrew. And if we do is connect people like through chats from abroad, I think it would be good for a lot of people. But for people like them, it's very limited for them to get support from other people from other countries, because there aren't enough people around the world that can do it, regardless if they have a disability or not.
So you raise a very interesting issue, Rachel, because there are a good number of Russian or French speakers also, and people who are English speakers with disabilities, or people who typically would not have a disability but might want to work with a therapist because of the trauma of knowing victims or hostages. So I think you've raised a very interesting point of not limiting the support to only Hebrew, but to see where people can be paired when people are multilingual. That's a great idea, Rachel. Thank you for bringing that up.
Jennifer, if I could add something here.
Yes.
One of the first responses that JDC had to the current situation is that within 2 weeks, we had a website up and running, and everybody here can go into it. I can write the link in the chat, where we have over 100, and we realize that there's a lot of grassroots sort of mental health initiatives that are coming up. We also saw that nobody was really organizing it. There's a kind of, it depends which WhatsApp group you're on or which Facebook group you're on, and people were getting mixed messages about what's out, what kind of services were out there in terms of mental health support. And so what we did at JDC is we very, very quickly mapped all of the different services that are out there, and we're constantly adding more and more and more. And one of the things that's great about this website is that it allows you to sort of filter based on your needs. And one of the needs there is language. Another one is the type of support that you're looking for, whether you're looking for something face-to-face or whether you're looking for something online, whether you're looking for just the different types of therapies and services and interventions that are out there. And also it looks at, you can also filter by location, by your age, all of these kinds of things.
Do you also have a way for people to request equipment if, for example, they need a stool for their shower, or, they might need a ramp, a small ramp for where they're staying, one of those portable ones? Is there a place where people can borrow equipment?
So I'll say that as part of sort of the services that we're giving, the way that we give sort of the large shipments of equipment that we've gotten is through organizations that we know that operate in the field and really help to find sort of the specific people that need need the equipment. And that's why it's great to have operational partners. We have some people, you know, who can help to organize these shipments, and other people that know exactly what's needed in the field and what the numbers are, and where things need to go. So we help to manage that.
Can each of you put your web links, the appropriate web links, for if somebody wants to learn more about what you're doing, or if they wanted to donate? But also this mental health support side sounds really very important. And it looks like, Yoav, that you have your hand up.
Yes, good evening to you all, and thank you for being in this meeting. As an activist, I think our main issue is for after this really vicious time, we need to remember that you not build a community solution through this kind of time, and we need to insist that in peace times, Israel will think about community services for people with disabilities, also doing emergency situation, because here in Israel we have a lot of emergencies, and it seems like every time we think about it from the start, and we see what we need to do, and we organize ourselves very, very quickly, and we have all these challenges that you hear about. We need to establish very good services for times of emergency, community services, and as an activist, and you can help us do it, and we maybe can learn from your experience how to make this issue on the table, even in time of peace, in order to be ready for every emergency situation that will come. And it doesn't need to be war. There is another horrifying thing that can happen, and we need to be ready.
Right, absolutely. I see there's questions about the larger mental health issue and how the government is reacting to a lot of things. Unfortunately, we don't have enough time to solve all of the problems. I am just thrilled to death that we had these incredible experts come together with some of the leading experts from North America who joined us for this conversation today, because I'm looking around not only at the Israeli experts who are on the front lines, but people from Canada and the United States and other places who work with people with disabilities all the time. I just want to recap, 9 million people live in Israel. Almost all of them have been under rocket attack for 25 days, which means that they're constantly running in and out of shelters. I want to say that my heart goes out for the people of Gaza that don't have shelters. You know, it's a difficult time for innocent people with disabilities who are on the other side of this conflict, who are not Hamas, and that my heart goes out to them. We were focusing today on what's going on in Israel, and we'd like to see a better future for, you know, people of all backgrounds everywhere. But first, obviously, Israel must address this ongoing threat from Hamas with the rockets that are still 25 days in a row, still coming from the south, and now sometimes from Hezbollah in the north and other Iran proxies from other places. So all of these disability services have to be delivered under great strain, including, and we didn't have time to address it, the mental health of the staff, the providers, because so many of the people who were serving people with disabilities lost loved ones. have loved ones who are hostages or are doing double duty for childcare because one member or more member of their family has been called to the IDF. So the strain on the staff.
Some of them being traumatized as well.
Absolutely traumatized as well. So I want to thank everyone for joining us. I also want to give a really big thanks to the Jerusalem Press Club. For those of you who don't know what the Jerusalem Press Club is, it is an organization that is helping bring international journalists to learn about Israel in a nonpartisan way. They tend to look sort of big picture, and they're not political. They're not associated with any political party or ideology. They just try and bring forward facts, the facts that they let us use this platform to address the impact of this Hamas situation on people with disabilities is really very appreciated. Talia, their CEO, and their whole team is terrific. And if you don't know the organization, I hope you'll get to know them. Their website has events constantly learning about different things that are going on. They're all free and they're online if you want to follow up with them. I just want to say thank you to everyone who participated. This was recorded and it will be posted online. And I just want to thank again the speakers who were just, you know, terrific, from JDC, Bizchut, Israel Elwin, and Rachel.
Sorry, I have an alarm. Sorry.
Oh no, so
Okay.
going to the bomb shelter, this is what life is like in Israel. I see multiple people heading out towards bomb shelters. Thank you so much for what you do. Have a good evening, and thank you again.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so
Thank you.
much.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank you
everyone.
all.
Thank you, Jennifer. It was very good to see you again.
Good to see you again.